Kevin said to me, Tom, you just got to book the trip. When I asked him about how you get these things done and manage all these complex demands in your life, he said, just book the trip. And it was so obvious. I'd been delaying it for fear. That's simply it. I'd been delaying the commitment of that journey because I was scared. I was scared of doing something big. And that moment where I said, well, I've just got to do this, it felt enlivening. It felt right. It felt like this is the right way to live my life. This is who I'm supposed to be. It felt very kind of secure, like I stood on stable ground. Because to me, adventure fills me up. Those who are living a life of freedom have optimized themselves and their lives in pursuit of one thing: choice. They've created the financial, geographical, and time freedom to do what they want when they want to. But they've also created freedom from their internal limitations, their story, their biology, and their character. In this podcast, The Freedom Project, it is my attempt to shortcut your learning curve to having total freedom in your life so you can go and do more cool shit. I'm going to bring you deep dives into some of the most inspiring adventure athletes and business owners in the world. I'm also going to give you the key concepts of my coaching process to adventurepreneurs so you can start applying that to your life today. So here is another episode of The Freedom Project. I would like to invite you to come with me on an adventure. This is going to be quite the journey, to be honest. I'm going to invite you to see the wins and the losses that I'm about to encounter. And this journey is going to be, it's going to be demanding. And it feels like a risk inviting you along with this because you're about to see something either massively inspirational and massively helpful to you and educational, or you're about to witness something that is a very public failure. Let's start right at the beginning with this because late last year, kind of Q3, Q4 time, I was bored, quite frankly. I was running into this kind of stagnation period and everything was fine. Like I was working with some great clients, got an amazing relationship. Things were stable, I was fit and healthy, but it was just fine. And quite a lot of us, fine isn't good enough. Like if you're listening to this, I'm guessing fine isn't the life that you want. You don't want to look back at your life in your deathbed and think, well, that was fine. You want to think that was incredible. Some of us want to squeeze the juice from life to get every last drop. And that's me. And I'm guessing that's you too. So whilst everything was fine, it felt heavy. It felt like I was a little bit restless. Like I was not quite living the life of authenticity that I really want and not quite living the life that I dream of. I found myself daydreaming of adventures in Canada and those times where I just felt truly alive and when I felt like I was really living a meaningful expectation or a meaningful life, and daydreaming about those. And like I was on my kind of very routine days where life was just the same. It's kind of Groundhog Day. Okay, like I was bored and a bit restless and I felt like something was missing from my life. A little je ne sais quoi. Okay, there was something I couldn't quite put my finger on that I was missing. And I saw myself playing a lot of golf, and golf is fine. Like, it's fine. It's not quite the adventure that I'm craving, but I was living what I call the Chino's lifestyle. A lot of smart shirts, a lot of Chinos, a lot of pub lunches. But I was stagnated, and I was frustrated, and I was missing the adventure. And I saw all my friends having adventures, and I craved it. I longed for it. I longed for something more. And that combined with, like, Harriet and I are at this time now where we got married. At that point, we'd been married for about a year, and like there's thoughts of starting a family, and there's all that kind of stuff. And I think that kind of plays into your mind in a way that, well, we're about to move on. This phase of life is about to change. And I don't want to go through that having missed out on the things that I truly, truly love. So I had this back burner image of I want to do something more. I had this back burner image of a little bit of frustration. But that all came to head when I interviewed a guy called Kevin Gaskell, and long-term listeners of the podcast will recognize that name because Kevin was former CEO of Porsche, and I'm going to butcher this if I don't get this right. So I'm just going to say he's an epic guy. He's done a lot of amazing things in business, but he's also an amazing adventurer. And within that podcast, Kevin said to me, Tom, you just got to book the trip. When I asked him about how you get these things done and manage all these complex demands in your life, he said, just book the trip. And it was so obvious. I'd been delaying it for fear. That's simply it. I'd been delaying the commitment of that journey because I was scared. I was scared of doing something big. And that moment where I said, well, I've just got to do this, it felt enlivening. It felt right. It felt like this is the right way to live my life. This is who I'm supposed to be. It felt very kind of secure, like I stood on stable ground. Because to me, adventure fills me up. It makes me a better version of me. And I love growth. And I love freedom. But at that point, I just didn't have enough adventure in my life. I had too much comfort. I'd become trapped by comfort, by a stable, predictable life. And we love the stability. And it's like essential for some growth, and it's essential for your life. You can't just go around being completely unstable. But too much comfort is a trap. And I thought from this point where I said, well, I'm doing this, well, I've booked the trip, I thought that would be easy. I thought it would be a simple journey. But what I didn't realize is that this journey that I'd just taken the snap decision to book with two of my closest friends was actually going to be far more demanding than I ever realized. We booked this trip to Pakistan, and it was originally going to be Kyrgyzstan for some ski mountaineering, but then we're like, okay, Pakistan, for various reasons, we're going to Pakistan, up in the Skardu Valley, where we're going to be ski touring at around 5,000 meters. We're going to have to do some proper mountaineering stuff. It's going to be a big boy trip. What I didn't realize is that this trip, this is kind of for me, this is a once in a lifetime trip, maybe. Or it's not quite that, because I can see more of them happening in the future, but this is the pinnacle of what I want to be doing. Remote wilderness, adventure, difficulty, travel, meeting these incredible people, going to a different culture, doing something new, firmly venturing into the unknown. And then the physical element of it, and the skill challenge too, and the people that I'm going with. This is what it's all about. And also, like, I'm 32 now, and I'm not getting any younger. I'm sitting here with a little bit of a bad back right now. I realize that these opportunities, you don't get them, or like they pass you by if you don't make the most of it. And what I didn't realize is that this trip, it was not just a physical test in the moment. When I get to Pakistan, that, in fact, I think maybe the easier part of this. For me, this is a fucking brutal test already. I didn't know it at that time when I booked it, but it was about to become very, very difficult. I expected plain sailing. Like, I expected to draw upon these past strengths I had, these abilities to grind, and the mentality that I built up in the Royal Marines, and like through overcoming anxiety and depression and the mentality problems I used to have. I had all these to draw upon, but in fact, I was just sitting at this invisible limitation. My clients often call this their glass ceiling. Like, they're bumping against this level that they're not sure how to move beyond. What I didn't know in booking this trip and committing myself to it was that I was about to find this out the hard way, the incredibly difficult way, because I'd set this goal. And in setting the goal, which we often don't do because it's scary and because of what I'm about to say, I'd set this goal, and this huge gap was exposed between where I was and who I had to be to make it happen. And this gap between where I was and my potential, and that was terrifying. Just a quick one from me. If you haven't already downloaded the Adventurepreneur's ultimate route planning and navigation guide to absolute freedom and doing more cool shit, what are you waiting for? In this totally free guide, I give you the frameworks that I've taught to hundreds of adventurepreneurs that set their life up for more freedom so they can get out and live a life full of adventure. It's going to teach you how to set your days and weeks up in order to maximize your time doing the things you love, and how to perform at your best day in, day out, and burst through your limitations. It's packed full of actionable steps, and you can get it by going to bit.ly/adventure.nav. Once again, that's bit.ly/adventure.nav. bit.ly/adventure-nav. So I had this gap in my business of, if I go away, the business stops running. There's no extra revenue brought in. So I need a team. And I need a team that matches my standards. And I've got a few people, like Joe, who edits this podcast, for example, who's fantastic. But I don't have a team that carries on everything, that builds the standard in these very specific, highly skilled roles that I need to hire for. That means I need more revenue to pay for that. It means that we need to grow massively. And then the other thing that's building towards revenue is like, well, I want to live the life that I want. Like, it's no shame to have these demands of growth and these this lifestyle that I want to live too, and we want to buy a house. And then physically as well, there's this huge gap in where I was physically and where I needed to be. I was no longer in the Royal Marines, that's for sure. It's getting close on a decade that I haven't been there, and that grizz, that physical toughness has definitely waned in that. I've adapted to a more comfortable lifestyle. Like at altitude as well, I was going to struggle with that. I didn't have the endurance base. So this huge gap was in front of me. So I did what I know I needed to do. And actually, before I get to what we did, this is the size of this gap and how daunting it is often what puts us off a more authentic and adventurous life, because we know how big that gap is, and we fall into this trap of a fixed mentality. Like, maybe I can't bridge that gap. Maybe it's not for me. So I did what we all do to begin with, and the very logical step. I hired people who knew what to do. Coaches, mentors. I got a business mentor called Phil Graham. He is one of the best in the industry. As you're about to find out, he's very expensive. Physically, I hired a guy called Ed Norman, who's not only a PTI, a physical training instructor in the Royal Marines, he's also helped a ton of the North Face athletes to perform at a high level, and he's got this excellent reputation, rightly deserved, within the world of strength and conditioning, to make people very fit and strong and resilient for things like this. This was a huge leap. Not only that, I had this huge financial kind of outlay for the trip and for the kit that I need, and everything goes along with that. So there's this huge outlay for me. And if you don't know my story, there's some of this that is, it triggers a lot of old stories about investment and money and being broke, which a lot of us have. This was a huge leap for me. And long story short, in that moment, I invested 5 times what I've cumulatively invested in myself over my lifetime, roughly. I thought over the next year or so, that's what's going to happen. I'm going to have to invest that much. And I committed myself to that. Instantly, there was a fear of failure. Instantly, there was uncertainty. Instantly, I was crippled by fear. This is where people get it wrong, though. That fear, and don't get me wrong, in that moment, I was smashed by it. My heart rate variability went to crap. I wasn't sleeping. Heart rate variability is a sign how positively we will adapt to stress or not. Essentially, our body is perceiving threat, and our heart rate variability shows the amount of variation between our heartbeats. And the more variation you have, the better, because it shows that you're adapting to the stress in the environment. My heart rate variability went to shit. I was not sleeping. I was stressed out my mind. My mind was messy, and I was overwhelmed. And I had all these fear-based thoughts and the victim mentality, and like, I can't control this. This is so weird for me, and instantly I wanted to get out it, fuck, I made a huge mistake. I even started avoiding the shit that I know I really needed to do. Like, training started slipping, poor habits started accruing, like the occasional beer after work became more frequent, scrolling through Instagram, procrastination. All of that fear is not a sign that I was inadequate. It's just that I was doing something new, and I was really running up aggressively against that limit. And what all this showed me is that, well, it's not just external objectives we've got to meet. It's not just, how many outbound messages we've got to send as a business, and how many, what kind of standards of coaching that we've got to hit, and financial kind of responsibilities and all these things. It's not just those, and it's not just training sessions, and it's not just making sure that my life doesn't fall to pieces in the duration, and maintaining my relationship, and maintaining my own personal happiness and sanity. It's not just that. It's the internal transformation that really matters. Quite frankly, we know the objectives we've got to reach. We know the path, or we at least know 90% of it. Like, sure, my coaches have been fantastic. However, it's 80% of that I knew what to do. It's the internal transformation that has to happen and the accountability of those coaches. So in those areas, like, I was immediately exposed as, well, you're not good enough and you have to grow. That is what needs to happen. And immediately, 3 key areas that we need for growth became clear. And I'm so lucky to have worked in this area for so long, because I know this and it was clearer to me. For people who don't know this, like maybe you, this becomes immediate, like it becomes so overwhelming because you don't know that these are the 3 things. So these 3 things are what you need to grow. A crystal clear mind. You need clear thoughts. My mind at that point was not crystal clear. It was messy. You need true resilience. You need to positively adapt to stress, in other words, true resilience, like mental, physical, emotional resilience. And then you need the ability to effectively and exquisitely execute your game plan. You need to do the shit that you really need to do. My clients face this the whole time. And before they work with me, they take the lack of those 3 things as a sign of inadequacy. But they're just highlighting the path that you need to grow. It's the same as looking at the scales and seeing a number that you don't like. That's just data. And it gives you the hint that you need to change it. And it also gives you a hint of how you need to grow. That negative emotion is pointing you in the direction of your growth. So I learned 2 key lessons from this. Firstly, knowing the path is absolutely fine and it's essential to growth, but implementing the plan and doing so in a way that isn't just ticking the box, but you're actually playing the music, to reference an old episode. That is what matters. You need to do it well. You need to fully commit to this life. It's not the external that matters, it's the internal. And secondly, you have to grow at least as quickly as your business, or you hit a glass ceiling. Your business cannot outgrow you. Your limitation is the business's limitation. And that is the big thing that I realized. And it's the big thing that I realized about myself, and I need to grow up, grow my next level. And then it's the same thing with my clients too. So that is the big realization. Next time I chat about this, next time I bring this up on the podcast, I'm going to share with you the exact process that I've put together for you to level up. I'm going to share how I'm doing this for myself and how you can do it for yourself too. And I'll be showing how you can overcome the 3 biggest problems that means your standard slide as an adventurepreneur, as a business owner seeking more freedom. The big challenges are, firstly, a lack of mental, physical and emotional resilience. Secondly, a messy, unclear mind. And third, the inability to execute effectively. In this next episode, that is what I'll be showing you, and I can't wait to let you know.